I started racing to be the dad that my dad was before he became my dad, so that I could be the dad that I wish my dad had chosen to be for me. It's kind of a mouthful. Let me explain. My dad was a good dad. Like, without question. He was the classic American dad. Had a good, decent enough paying job. Never beat the snot out of me. Always had a roof over my head. And I mean, he started with the American dream. He bought a cabin about 5 or 6 years before I was born. And it had nothing. Up until I was about 8 years old. It still was common for me to go out to an outhouse and go piss in the middle of a Maine winter. And he built a life that he was a great dad in. And then something kind of changed when I was about 6 years old. When I was about 6 years old, I was playing with some sort of muscle car type toy. I don't remember really what it was, but it was a little muscle car toy. And my dad had a friend over. And while I'm playing with that muscle car toy, I'm sitting there and, doing what kids do and playing with it. And all of a sudden, my dad's friend, and I distinctly remember it at 6 years old, just, "Hey, Lucky, do you remember that one time you were driving that Camaro and you come in 140 miles per hour and you came up on and you hit the gravel and you were shooting rooster tails and everybody thought you were going to lose it, but you saved it and you managed to come back and you managed to beat that kid and that was awesome." And that started me realizing that my dad was a good dad, but my dad used to be cool. And I sat there trying to stay awake at 6 years old, listening to story after story after story about who my dad could have been. And my dad used to race MGB midgets. And my dad used to go to Colorado and race ice racing Jeeps. My dad used to bracket race muscle cars. My dad used to open race muscle cars. My dad used to get hired on in order to go and be a driver for Circle Track in a couple of places. And then about 5 or 6 years before I was born, it's like some switch went off and he just stopped being cool. And I never knew who this person was. My dad never talked about it. My dad never talked about who he used to be. And unless he had a friend over that was from that time of his life, it didn't exist. And then all of a sudden he'd have a friend over and I would hear about this person that was a hero. He was somebody that everybody wanted to be. He was my dad, but yet he wasn't. And when my dad passed away, and we were at his funeral, or rather his celebration of life afterwards, hundreds of people showed up. I ended up with emails from across the entire United States of people that wanted to tell me about my dad. But literally every cool story was from 5 years or more before I was ever born. And all I've ever thought my entire life was, why couldn't we have gone drag racing? Why couldn't we have gone to the Circle Track? Why couldn't we have gone and done even the most minimum of all of these cool things that my dad had done? We never did any of it. We never even there's a drag strip that is literally a half a mile away There's literally a 30-minute ride away from where I grew up, and is a 30-minute ride away from where I live now, that we take the mini bike to. And literally, my dad never took me to that drag strip until I was about 17 years old. And we showed up, and we were at that drag strip for about 2 hours. He stood right on the side of the racetrack, never said a thing watching the races the entire time we were there. And we left. And that was it. Out of all those stories everybody told about him, and the thing is I know the stories are true because there's photos. There were photos of my dad standing next to an ice racing Jeep. There are photos of my dad standing or driving 70s Camaros and 83 Monte Carlo, old 40s pickup trucks that were hot rodded out, multiple different MGB midgets that were set up for racing. Like, all of these people have pictures of my dad who wasn't my dad in even the smallest amount. And that's why I started racing. When John turned about 6 years old, I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what triggered it. But John, we were doing something where I won, and John just looked at me in that "you're my hero" look. And right then and there, I decided I was going to be the dad that I wish I had known from my dad. And that's just something I wanted to pass on. I wanted to let other fathers know that you don't have to be the dad that is driving the $40,000 dragster. You can literally be a hero just for the fact you built a mini bike. You can be a hero just for the fact that you went out and you drag raced your kid down your driveway. You can be a hero for the fact that you decided to sit there and tune up a muscle car and just drive down the strip because that kid is looking at you beaming, thinking you're cool. Like, you don't have to go and be a millionaire to be cool dad. All it takes is just that moment that that young child gets to see that you're more than just a paycheck and somebody to talk to and play Monopoly with and whatever. And there's nothing wrong with being that dad. But I wanted to be more. And I wanted to be the dad I wish my dad had have been. And so that's why I race now. And I'm lucky. I'm sponsored by Duramax. I get to build out engines on their budget. I get to go racing, basically 7 weekends a year for free, basically. But it all started because I wanted to be the dad my dad was, but never was as my dad. Thanks everybody for supporting my channel. And I'm sorry about the racing stuff that some people are interested in and some people aren't. But I'm not sorry for the fact that when I'm on this thing, my son sees the dad that I wish my dad had have been, and I get to be that dad for him. Have a good day, guys. Just something to think on while you're dad lifing it.